Hello, Watchmen of Ephraim here. This video, it's just going to be a general overview of where the Ukraine will end up in prophecy, who they are briefly, and the order of punishment of the nations, the succession of punishment of the nations in general. If I were to go into detail with this, this would be probably a 3-hour video. Right now, I'm just not gonna. I wouldn't put forth the time. This is just a general overview. We have the Ukraine being besieged. It's a pretty tough fight for the Russians. Things are escalating between the Russians and the West and NATO. Sanctions are being laid on Russia. Russia just put their nuclear forces on emergency alert over it. You may see cyber attacks on both sides. You may see the grids attacked on both sides. Be prepared. Make sure you have water, electricity, maybe a generator that can run your house or part of your house. It's dangerous times that we live in. The world economy is on the brink also of collapse because of the pandemic and the continual printing of money. The United States, first and foremost, according to this man, witnessing that we are Ephraim. And this, of course, this video will have a lot to do with that, because in the order of the punishment of the nations, we are going to get it first. The United States, Ephraim, the multitude of nations, Genesis 48:19, prophesied to be that nation in the latter days. Genesis chapter 49 and verses 1 and 2. So again, I'm just going to give you a general overview in Ukraine and Russia in prophecy, where they will show up in that order. God is going to punish the whole world. This is one of the reasons why I've kind of withdrawn from everybody. I see they're just everything's getting spiritualized, everything's getting allegoricalized. If you want to, until when this nation is made known, or if otherwise, if it's a false spirit that I've been preaching here, which I pray every day, if it's false, destroy my YouTube channel. Destroy what I've been teaching here on this small station, witnessing here. It's not about me. It's about the truth. And I'm not buying into the mamby-pamby things that are going around that I see on YouTube and Facebook. God does not change. He has a way of dealing with sin. People tend to think that since the New Testament arrived that everything's allegorical. This I will say, that only the church, hopefully this coffee's kicking in, it felt really foggy this morning, only the church, the priesthood has been made a spirit by faith, by the operation of God. The nations are still physical. The nations have not been reined in yet. It's only the church of God, the ecclesia of God. First comes the natural, then the spiritual. Okay? The nations are still physical. And the nations are getting angrier and angrier. We're going to see how this plays out. Let me get another sip of coffee. So we, the United States, are going to get it first. Let me just go back to Jeremiah Excuse me. Jeremiah 25. We'll start with that. First and foremost, also, Jack Van Impe used to say, when Christ returns, all the nations and all the cities are going to print in their newspapers, Christ has returned. Jesus has returned. Well, it's not going to be that simple. It's not going to be that easy. The earth will be completely devastated. Very few will be left on the earth, as I'll witness once again. Most of the world, I believe, won't even know who this person is. That's why all these people get annihilated at the Battle of Armageddon, or the battle of the Battle of Jehoshaphat, or the climax battle of the Day of Atonement, the Avenger of Blood, Messiah taking vengeance on the nations. Not going to be that easy. Most of humanity, what's left, won't even know who this being is. Just the saints and the Israelites that will cry out to them once again in captivity. I believe that this end-time church, Philadelphia, is going to have a mission. They're going to be kept from the hour of trial that's going to come upon the whole world, and they're going to have a door open to them to go to Judah and Jerusalem and convince the inhabitants of Jerusalem who their Savior is. They're going to need to have all their doctrines, according to God, according to what's in the Torah, lined up. You're just not going to be able to stroll into town believing anything you want and blaspheming God. This is maybe the main reason why he's bringing punishment on this country for sure, and the nations, blaspheming his name, his character, his fame, his reputation. Let me just get out of that. Jeremiah 25, the cup of God's wrath. This is what Yahweh, the God of Israel, said to me, take from my hand this cup filled with wine, the wine of my wrath, and make all the nations to whom I send to you drink it. When they drink it, they will stagger and go mad because of the sword I will send among them. So I took the cup from Yahweh's hand and made all the nations to whom I sent me drink it. Jerusalem and the towns of Judah, its kings, its officials, to make them a ruin and an object of horror and scorn, a curse, as they are today. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, his attendants, his officials, and all his people, and all the foreign people there, all the kings of Uz, all the kings of the Philistines, those of Ashkelon, Gaza, Ekron, and the peoples left at Ashdod, Edom, Moab, and Ammon. Once again, Bible prophecy is dual, and also Prophecy 101, these ancient nations that were all in the Middle East, these peoples, many of them have gone to other foreign lands. God will refer back to a people's original dwelling place, even though they've long ago moved off to other lands. All the kings of Tyre and Sidon, the kings of the coastlands across the sea, Dedan, Tema, Buz, and all who are in distant places, all the kings of Arabia, all the kings of Arabia, and all the kings, I moved it and I lost my place, of all the foreign people who live in the wilderness, all the kings of Zimri, Elam, and Media. That's who the Ukrainians are. Media. Elam are the Slavic nations. I'm going to post a couple of articles along with this video that explains this a little deeper. I'm not going to go into detail. I'm not going to do like a 2-hour video. I'm not doing it. To be truthful with you, my eye is mainly on this nation first. Okay. Well, where is it at? Right here. This is Russia. Occupies 2/3 of Syria. The United States, east of the Euphrates, 1/3 of Syria. I need to see how this plays out first. If you want to call it my theory, my prophecy, is that to prove that we are Ephraim, because God said he's hiding his face from the house of Jacob right now. I know Ephraim, and Israel's not hidden from me. This has to fall into the U.S.'s favor. And things are escalating between NATO and Russia. Okay. If we take that, I'm going to get real serious, and I'm going to come back to Facebook. I'm going to be bold as hell. I'm very zealous, but it's not for me. Okay. This has to play out first. So all this, I'm just giving you a general, just a general outline of what's coming. It has to be done according to his servants, the prophets. Elam and Media, or the Medes, and all the kings of the north, near and far, one after the other, all the kingdoms of the face of the earth, and after all of them, the king of Shishak will drink it too. That's the king of Babylon. But what I'm going to show you is who's going to make Babylon drink. Well, we know that Messiah is going to return. He's going to take back the earth, but it's going to be a period of time. The Day of Atonement is on the 10th day of the 7th month. That's when the trumpet of the Jubilee blows. But you got 5 more days until the Feast of Tabernacles. Will it take up to 5 years to reign in the nations? So what I'm trying to show you here is who's missing. The house of Israel. But I'll show you once again that they show up again in the latter days. While I'm at it, I didn't write it down. Once again, Isaiah 2. You got to understand when, especially when it comes to this Gog and Magog prophecy. This is what Isaiah the son of Amoz saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the last days. Notice that, in the last days. The mountain of the house of Yahweh's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and all nations will stream to it. Many peoples will come and say, "Come and let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the temple of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, and we shall walk in his paths. The Torah will go out from Zion." That's you, the priests, at the headquarters of Zion. And I believe Philadelphia will have special knowledge, high knowledge of the Torah, concerning the good things to come and the leper judgment. That's why they're going to be pillars in the temple. They will be the chief priests among priests, high priests, along with the highest of the high priests. They won't go out. They'll be at the headquarters. He will judge between the nations and will settle disputes for many peoples. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. So it's going to be a process of time. He's going to be on the earth in the latter days, what I'm trying to tell you. The kingdom won't be established right away. The nations won't be printing newspapers. Christ is returned. He's going to rebuke many nations afar off in the last days. That's something you need to understand. Peter even said, I'm going to pour God. He said, God will pour His Spirit out in the last days. So it's not going to be, it's just not going to be paradise right away. Okay. So going on here. So where's the map of the world here? Right here. Okay. So United States, Ephraim, Canada, Great Britain, who has left the EU. Keep that in mind. They left the EU. You got Europe here. You got the Ukraine, Belarus. You got these Baltic nations up here. Hungary and Czechoslovakia. Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania. You got all these Baltic countries. You got these Slavic countries. These are the countries of Elam, the Slavic nations. And then right here you have the Ukraine, which the descendants of the Medes. You'll see this coming up, the Medes coming up in these prophecies against Babylon. And what you got to understand about these prophecies I'm going to show you in Babylon, that they didn't happen at the time of the first siege of Babylon, like 536, October of 536 BC, 539. Forgive me. I actually wrote it down here because my memory is terrible. 539 BC, Cyrus overthrew Babylon. Didn't shoot an arrow. Okay, so what you got to understand when you read these prophecies in Isaiah and Jeremiah and that, it's talking about a latter day for the most part. So what I'm trying to show, I'm going to show you here is the Ukraine is going to fall into the hands. It was pro-West after the Soviet Union fell in 1989. But it appears that Bible prophecy shows quite clearly that it will be aligned with a multitude of nations from the north. Of what? Of Babylon, as I'll show you in Jeremiah. This is just a general overview. The Medes were originally in Iran, along with Elam, and the Persians, which are the modern-day Iranians, are still there for the most part. But Elam, the Slavic nations, and Media, the Medes, they migrated out and went to, there's Persia, the Medes were here, the Elam was here. I'm a little still foggy. So they migrated over the Caucasus Mountains and that, and they went into Eastern Europe like the ancient northern kingdom of the Israelites after when they were taken into captivity in by 721 BC and that. So a lot of these nations have moved on to Europe. Again, I'll post a couple articles that goes into some detail about that. I just didn't really want to go through it in detail because I don't want to be sitting here for 2 hours. Hopefully I'll be done with this in an hour. Just giving you a general overview. Once again, I'm concerned about this. This is the first. Okay, this is the first thing. The Great Tribulation, the Jacob's trouble. Okay, the Damascus oracle. Okay. My wife didn't even know that. I don't push my stuff on people. Never have. Except other than maybe one time, I don't think I've ever initiated one or two times a messenger on Facebook. I don't push my doctrines on people or what I believe. You want to call it doctrines or truths, which have to be proved. If this gets proved, well, it's going to change. I'm not trying to shove myself on people. But God does not reveal anything unless, He doesn't do anything unless He first reveals it to His servants, the prophets. Okay. That will be those in the last days. Kind of touch on that in Ezekiel 33 as we lead up to, just give you a contextual quick analysis of Ezekiel 33 all the way up to like 39, whatever. Okay, so (539 BC), Cyrus the Great overthrows Babylon, and I'll expound a little more on that. But anyways, going on here, Micah 6. Concerning the house of Israel. Happening today. Verse 16, you have observed the statutes of Omri, and all the practices of Ahab's house are kept. You have followed their traditions. That's the biggest one of all. Baal worship. Burning their sons and daughters in the fire. Okay. Literally, but delayed. Witnessing that most of humanity is going to be tortured forever or burned up forever. Most believers are teaching this evil doctrine. They haven't searched out the sacred secrets of the kingdom. They don't want to, for that matter. You have followed their traditions, therefore I will give you over to ruin, and your people to derision. You will bear the scorn of the nations. Notice that. Or you're going to bear the shame of the nations. Excuse me. In other words, I'm going to lay the brunt on you. The brunt of it all this great tribulation and day of the Lord and all that, which is really the day of atonement. The avenger of blood is coming to take vengeance on the earth through the 7 seals. Okay. So we're going to go to next Hosea. Oh, wait a minute. Ezekiel 36:6. Just real quick. (36:6). May have the wrong verse. If I did, I'll get out of it. Therefore prophesy concerning the land of Israel, and say to the mountains, hills, to the ravines, and to the valleys, this is what the Sovereign One says, I speak in my jealousy, wrath, because you have suffered. Yes, notice, you have suffered. This is against Israel, the mountains of Israel, or I like to call it the nations of Israel. You have suffered the scorn of the nations. To fully understand this, you got to go all the way back to chapter 33 first. Then to chapter 35 to understand who's going to take the house of Israel out. It's not going to be Russia. You have suffered the scorn or the shame of the nations. We're going to get it first. There's going to be a successive order of the punishment of the nations. First will be the Great Tribulation or Jacob's trouble. Primarily this nation. And you're going to have the rest of the nations punished, or called the day of the Lord. The day of the Lord, day of atonement. It's going to atone for all the blood shed on the earth. And then after that, when the trumpet of Jubilee blows, the 120th Jubilee, then that's when his blood gets applied, and everyone must be set free. It's the beginning of the restitution of all things. First we have, it's not good what's going to take place shortly. Okay? Beginning with this nation primarily. So we're going to go to Hosea chapter 5. This chapter concerns the Ephraim-Syrian alliance and war. This deals with the war that they had with Assyria and what Assyria did to Ephraim. This is not about Russia. Oh, by the way, why am I doing this video? Because I see all Ezekiel 38:39, Gog and Magog popping up everywhere. So people are saying it's time for Gog and Magog. I apologize for that. I feel a little slow this morning. Okay. Time for the Gog and Magog prophecy, but I'm showing you, I'm going to show you that there is going to be a successive punishment of the nations. You'll see that especially in Jeremiah chapter 50 and 51. Okay, so first and foremost, sound the trumpet in Gibeah, the horn in Ramah. Raise the battle cry in Bethaven. Lead on, O Benjamin. Okay, sound the trumpet. You got a trumpet here. What are we looking at here? Remember, Revelation 10:7, as he declared to his servants, the prophets. This is one of the 7 trumpets. Can you guess which one? Well, that's another video, hopefully, maybe I can get to in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to start turning away from the salvation of all. Again, there's only, well, you can continue to do videos and videos on them. It's endless, really. It could be endless, but it's time to, I've done enough. Not to say I won't do more, because I probably will. Okay, sound the trumpet in Gibeah, the horn in Ramah. Raise the battle cry in Bethaven. Lead on, O Benjamin. Notice verse 9. Ephraim will be laid waste on the day of reckoning. Among the tribes of Israel I proclaim what is certain. Okay. Judah's leaders are like those who move boundary stones. That's part 2 of the cornerstone of my my witness, that Ephraim and Judah, or Israel, that goes by our name over there, that little tiny country, the 4th son of Jacob, we have to become enemies with them. This is what this war was all about. Judah's leaders are like like those who move boundary stones. I will pour out my wrath on them like a flood of water. Ephraim is oppressed, trampled in judgment, intent on pursuing idols. Yeah, we have our idols, don't we? Our cars, our boats, our houses, our pleasures. I am like a moth to Ephraim, like the rot to the people of Judah. When Ephraim saw sickness and Judah his sores, then Ephraim turned to Assyria and sent to the great king for help. That will be the rise of the 8th beast king, a red beast. There's a reason why it's red in excuse me, in the book of Revelation, chapter 12, chapter 17, scarlet beast, which the 8th beast will have no woman riding on it. There's a reason why it's red. Revelation is tipping you back to the Torah, to the prophets, as he declared to his servants the prophets. It's not Russia. It's not the Russian bear. It's not Soviet. No, it's Esau. Okay. Getting back here. Notice. I will be like a lion to Ephraim, like a great lion to Judah. I will tear them to pieces and go away. I will carry them off with no one to rescue them. Then I will return to my lair until they have borne their guilt and seek my face. Notice, in their misery they will earnestly seek me. The first time they went into captivity, they did not seek him. They were taken away for the most part. And later they migrated to northwestern Europe, to England, and over to America. And that's where they are. They lost their identity because they quit keeping the law. And the Sabbath, the physical Sabbath, is what sanctified them. The spiritual Sabbath is what will sanctify the God's people in the last days. I believe there's going to be a mass abandonment when things start going belly up of the faith, of belief in a God and his Son. This time around, when they go into captivity, Ephraim's going to earnestly seek God in captivity. Jeremiah 31. I didn't even put this down. Exactly what verses. This is what Yahweh says. A voice is heard in Ramah, mourning and great weeping, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted because they are no more. Matthew used that in type concerning the 2,000 infants that were slaughtered in Bethlehem. But Rachel never had Judah. Rachel had Joseph. Mourning and weeping for her children because they are no more. But a tenth will be left. This is why I'm a quote-unquote a universalist. I'm not readily accepted. It's confusing. I have surely heard Ephraim's moaning, verse 18. You discipline me like an unruly calf, and I have been disciplined. Well, the first time around, didn't happen. Restore me, and I will return. Didn't happen the first time around. And it's not that crazy doctrine of the Hebrew roots, the Ruth Beta Wooten, that they're scattered among all the nations and are called the Gentiles, and they're keeping Torah and waking up. Talking about a nation here, apart from the other tribes. Because you are Yahweh my God. After I strayed, I repented, and I came to understand. I beat my breast. I was ashamed and humiliated because I bore the disgrace of my youth. Didn't happen the first time around. We're going to get it first. Is not Ephraim my dear son? Is the child in whom I delight? Verse 6, he's the firstborn. Him alone. Though I often speak against him, I still remember him. Therefore my heart yearns for him. I have great compassion for him, declares Yahweh. Didn't happen the first time around. Only Judah returned to the land. And, mixed in remnants of the other northern tribes, and you have Judah dispersed among the house of Israel. We're going to be the first ones to get it. Ezekiel 33. We're going to go through real quick. To understand, really, Ezekiel 38 and 39, where Russia comes in, where Elam is going to come in, where the Medes are going to come in. That's the Ukraine. And this will be tested. Got to understand from this point really here. 29 to 32, Egypt, the king of the south. Then you have this here in 33, the watchman over the house of Israel. Why? Because of what's coming in chapter 35. The word of Yahweh came to me, Son of man, speak to your people and say to them, when I bring a sword against the land and the people of the land, choose one of their men and make him their watchman. And he sees the sword coming against the land and blows the trumpet to warn the people. Then if anyone hears the trumpet but does not heed the warning, and the sword comes and takes their life, their blood will be on their own head. Since they heard the sound of the trumpet but did not heed the warning, their blood will be on their own head. Okay. Let's go to verse 7. Son of man, I have made you a watchman for the house of Israel. It says people of Israel, but it's translated New King James, better translation, house of Israel. How can that be? They were gone 120 years ago before Ezekiel was taken into captivity, and the second wave of captivity concerning Judah. It's for our day, because in chapter, and this is what you're going to have to do in the last days if all this is correct, you're going to have to warn. Because he will do nothing first before he declares it, until he declares it to his servants, the prophets. Chapter 34, the oracle against the false shepherds of Israel, the house of Israel. That's the Orthodox, according to my witness. That's the Hebrew roots, the synagogue of Satan, all that. All these people that are teaching lies, especially about God and what he's going to do to his creation. They failed the test of Psalm 25, verse 2. Seeking out what God has concealed. And they've given our Creator a bad report. Now we have chapter 35. Identifies who's going to be the one that takes this country out, and it's not Russia. So you're going to see, I'm sure you're going to see the printing presses fire up, and the money's going to be made. Ezekiel 38, 39. And what I'm trying to tell you here, there's going to be a successive punishment of the nations. The word of Yahweh came to me, Son of man, set your face against Mount Seir. Who are we talking about here? Prophesy against it and say, this is what sovereign Yahweh says, I am against you, Mount Seir, and I will stretch out my hand against you and make you a desolate waste. To understand Ezekiel 38 and the time frame, you have to understand what's going on here now. And make you a desolate waste. I will turn your towns into ruins, and they will be desolate. Then you will know that I am Yahweh. Why? Because you have harbored an ancient hostility, an ancient hatred, and delivered the Israelites. Let me go to the New King James. I'm just used to the New King James. This is the NIV, and I do like the new NIV concerning prophecy. They take it right out of the, they translated from the Septuagint. Because you have an ancient hatred and have shed the blood of the children of Israel by the power of the sword at the time of their calamity. Here it is. Jacob's trouble. Who's he fingering? Read, for instance, Isaiah 64. That's the treading of the winepress. The the grapes of wrath. That is the Messiah coming to judge Esau and Edom. And it parallels what? Revelation 19. The garments are splattered in blood. All right? The two brothers, the rivalry is going to emerge again in the last days. He's telling you right here. It's not Russia. It's not Gog and Magog. Like, who was that? He made $50 million. What did he make? Or he sold 50 million books. Who was he? I forget his name. My memory's getting terrible. Hal Lindsey. Millionaire. Not one of his prophecies came to pass. He said Russia and Ezekiel 38:39, and along with most everyone, thinks that that's the Armageddon battle. It is not. Notice that the time of their calamity, you killed them with a sword, by the power of the sword, when their iniquity came to an end. It's talking about the Day of Atonement. The time of the Day of Atonement. Therefore, as I live, says Yahweh God, I will prepare you for blood, and blood shall pursue you, since you have not hated blood, therefore blood shall pursue you. What's it written in the law? Those who shed blood in order to atone the land, the earth, well, your blood has to get shed. It's the avenger of blood coming. I will fill the mountains with the slain on your hills and in your valleys, and all your ravines, those who are slain by the sword and fall. So we see Edom here responsible for shedding the blood of the children of Israel. We got a little ways to go yet. Of course, test all things. Because you have said, these two nations and these two countries shall be mine, and we will possess them, although Yahweh was there. These two countries, the little country of Israel, the king of the north is going to come down with it's Esau, Spain, Germany, Amalek, okay, and that. Going to come down to the world. The world has to change. It has to turn upside down. It has to become the times of the Gentiles. These two nations and these two countries shall be mine. Latin America, who's pouring up into the country right now? Who's roving at large in Israel in the latter days? This, wherever the harlot is sitting, right? Peoples, multitudes, and nations and tongues, wherever the harlot is sitting, the Roman Catholic Church, where does it sit? In Europe and Latin America. Daniel 7:7, this last beast will be more diverse or different than all the beasts that were before it. So this Esau takes out the rivalry of the brothers, emerges again, as he says in Genesis 27, when he begins to rove at large, I forget exactly what verse, then I will kill my brother Jacob. He's going to break the yoke off his brother's neck. Who's dominated the earth in the last days since the Spanish Armada? Okay. Britain, United States, to two brothers, Ephraim and Manasseh. Let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. Okay, Australia, part of Manasseh. Okay, so it's Esau and taking these countries out first. Okay. This can be more clearly understood when you go to Jeremiah 51. Who gets it next after the United States and Britain, Ephraim, Manasseh bear the scorn of the nations, especially Ephraim among all the tribes of the nations? You can see this clearer in Jeremiah chapter 50. Chapter 50. I was going to say 51, but it's 50 first. Oh, real quick. I won't go to Jeremiah. Who gets it along with the United States? Egypt. Read for yourself. I'm gonna cut this short. Read for yourself. Jeremiah 46. The battle of Carchemish between Nebuchadnezzar and Necho, king of Egypt. You'll see it's really a battle because it's the day of the Lord. I think it's around verse 10. I'm trying to cut this video short. It's 46 minutes. Who's allied with the United States today? Egypt and the Arab states. King of the South, most likely. Just trying to cut this short. Just real quick, Ezekiel. Let's go to Ezekiel 29. So not only, so you have this king of the north coming down, and I'll go to Daniel. They're coming down, and they will, who knows, these northern African Arab nations, maybe not Libya, but probably more the Arab states here in the Saudi Arabia and that Iraq, and that we'll see where Syria goes, Egypt. They're going to the king of the north, Europe, Germany, the head, Assyria. That's what I witness. Going to come pouring down. Notice, in Jeremiah 40, 6:2, it looks like Carchemish, just inside Turkey, on the border with Syria. Egypt will be occupying that area at that time. Who's allies with Egypt right now? The United States, Ephraim. So you can kind of see who may be helping the United States occupy this territory. We will see if indeed the United States takes control of Syria. Because the U.S. has asked Arab nations to help occupy the eastern third of Syria. Come pouring down. King of the South is going to push at the king of the North. He's going to come pouring down and overflow and conquer them. Get to that in a minute. But Ezekiel 29, let's just jump here to verse 3. Speak and say, thus says Yahweh, behold, I am against you, O Pharaoh, king of Egypt, O great monster who lies in the midst of the rivers. So he's got a bunch of allies. He's a great monster who lies in the midst of his rivers. Rivers are just the tributaries, and he's the big river, who has said, my river is my own, I have made it for myself, but I will put hooks in your jaws. I will cause the fish of your rivers to stick to your scales. I will bring you up out of the midst of your rivers. So all his allies, fish that are stuck, this is all allegorical, this is all figurative, idiomatic. Egypt and her allies are going to get it. I will leave you in the wilderness, and you, all your fish of your rivers, you shall fall in the open field. You shall not be picked up or gathered. I will give you over as food to the beasts of the field and to the birds of the heavens. And all the inhabitants of Egypt shall know that I am Yahweh. Now notice, because they have been a staff of reed to the house of Israel. Once again, we're going to trust in Egypt as our allies. It's going to be like a flimsy staff, a reed. We're going to lean on it and fall over. They're not going to help us. Now, there's a lesson in that. Egypt represents sin. When they took hold of you with the hand, you broke and tore all their shoulders. When they leaned on you, you broke and made all their backs quiver. Failed to help them. Again. So what I'm trying to tie in here, along with the United States, punishments excessive of the nations, what I'm seeing, Egypt and her allies, King of the South, allies with the United States, with Judah, gonna get it along with Egypt. By who? Babylon. And we'll see this in Jeremiah 50 along with something else. You have to here a little, there a little. You can go to a lot of different chapters. I'm just trying to keep this limited, hopefully for a little more than an hour. Okay, let's go to Jeremiah 50 now. Okay, the word of Yahweh that spoke against Babylon and against the land of the Cauldians by Jeremiah the prophet. Declare among the nations, proclaim and set up the standard. Proclaim, do not conceal it. Say, Babylon is taken, Bel is shamed. Cush, Merodach, Nimrod, is broken in pieces. Her idols are humiliated. Her images are broken in pieces. For out of the north, notice this, out of the north a nation comes up against her. What you got to understand about these prophecies in Isaiah 13, it talks about great destruction on Babylon. The problem is the first fulfillment, basically not an arrow was shot. Cyrus the Great Cyrus the Mede and the Persians diverted the Euphrates River, which ran through Babylon. It was highly fortified. I forget how high their wall was around the city, like 300 feet. It was impregnable. But the river ran through the middle of the city, and all they did was divert the water upstream in 539. 539, yeah, the fall. I want to keep saying 536. In October of 539 BC. They diverted the river. They just walked, the channel was dry, and they just walked into the city. People didn't even realize it up until 3 days after. Cyrus didn't show up until 7 days after his forces captured the city. It was undamaged. This city continued to be occupied all the way up until the 1800s. We're about 10,000 people in the early 1800s were still living there. Now it's desolate. It's been, the ruins have been, the city's been, excavated in that. But it is desolate. But it wasn't destroyed like you get the descriptions in Jeremiah 50, 51, Isaiah 13, Revelation 17. You don't get at the time when Isaiah was prophesying Isaiah 13, it was just a little city. It was 100 years later before this Babylonian Empire would rise under Nebuchadnezzar. The city remained intact. Like Cyrus made it a capital. These are end time prophecies. Get a sip of water here. It says, for out of the north a nation comes up against her, which shall make her land desolate, and no one shall dwell therein. They shall move, they shall depart, both man and beast. In those days and in that time, says Yahweh. Now notice, the children of Israel shall come, they and the children of Judah together. Notice that. In this first shadow fulfillment of which the city was not destroyed, well, Cyrus declared after that. Daniel showed him, in Isaiah 45, 46. Look, which was written 100 years before, at least, his captivity. Or 100, 150, I forget. 39, be 150 years at least. Terrible with dates and all that stuff. Look, it caused them to, moved them to release the Jews. Hear that both houses are going to come out. This is not the church. You're going to be raised from the dead. You're going to be raised incorruptible. With continual weeping they shall come. These people are in captivity. And seek Yahweh their God. You're already seeking him, right? This is another fallacy concerning that crazy Hebrew roots, Ruth Beta Wooten, two-house theology doctrine. These are the remnant in captivity. They shall ask the way to Zion. You're going to be raised incorruptible. Your feet are going to be on the Mount of Olives, with their faces toward it, saying, come and let us join ourselves to Yahweh in a perpetual covenant that will not be forgotten. That's the new covenant. My people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds have led them astray. They have turned them every way on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their resting place. All have found them, have devoured them. This is a latter-day prophecy for both houses. And their adversaries said, we have not offended because they have sinned against Yahweh, the habitation of justice. Yahweh, the hope of their fathers. Notice, verse 8. Move from the midst of Babylon. Go out of the land of the Cauldians, and be like the rams before the flocks. Notice, for behold, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall array themselves against her, for they shall be captured. Their arrows shall be like those of an expert warrior. None shall return in vain, and Chaldea shall become plunder. All who plunder her shall be satisfied, says Yahweh. You go on, it talks about the destruction of this Babylon. The city was not destroyed the first time around. But notice there is an assembly of great nations out of the north. So, number one, United States and her allies here, who leans on Egypt again, northern 10 tribes, northwestern Europe, gone first. Next comes Babylon. Much of Europe, Catholic, Roman Catholic nations, and Latin America, the beast that's diverse. From who? Specifically, we're going to keep an eye on Europe here, because it's a witness once again. It's going to be Germany here as the leader, Assyria. That will be tested. A great assembly of nations out of the north. Notice that. And a successive punishment of the nations. First the United States, Ephraim, Britain. Then you got this beast power. Wherever the harlot is sitting, the Roman Catholic Church next, because there's going to be we know that Christ is going to return. He's not even going to care about the nations. His first priority is to have the children of Israel and Judah return, the remnant. You can read that in Isaiah 11, among others. Jeremiah 23, the beginning of it. The lost sheep, which are not these Hebrew roots people, by the way, is a false satanic doctrine. But everything is going to be proved. First, Ephraim, house of Israel. Next, Babylon. This Babylonian kingdom, this Roman Catholic, which when this beast, this end-time ruler declares himself a god, he will begin to exterminate the Roman Catholic Church. He will execute judgment on the great harlot. Revelation 17:15 through 17. Eat her flesh, make her naked, desolate, burn her with fire. It's done. And then he'll set himself up as a god, with the main target being the saints. Any religious organization in his realm is going to be declared illegal, and he will attempt to exterminate them. Before I forget, Daniel 11. Notice verse 40. At that time of the end, the king of the south shall attack him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, horsemen, and with many ships, and he shall enter the countries, overwhelm them, and pass through. Battle of Carchemish, Jeremiah chapter 46. He shall also enter the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown. But these shall escape from his hand, Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of Ammon. He shall stretch out his hand against the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. I already witnessed that. Many countries shall be overthrown. He shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. Also the Libyans and Ethiopians shall follow at his heels. Now notice verse 44. But news from the east and the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go out with great fury to destroy and annihilate many. And he shall plant the tents of his palace between the seas and the glorious land, Jerusalem, in and around Jerusalem, and glorious seas and the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and no one will help him. Notice news from the east and from the north. Okay, we have a Europe here, this beast kingdom, these Slavic nations, Elam and Ukraine, the Medes, okay. Ukraine looks like it's going to fall back into this sphere, excuse me, mouth is pretty dry, of this Gog and Magog beast power, okay. News out of the east. This is actually Gog Magog here, Rosh, Tubal, Meshach, Moscow, Rosh, Russia, Gog, Magog, China, Mongolia, Put, or Kush, not only Eastern Africa, but also the darker skinned people, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Gomer, the Southeastern Asian nations. News out of the east and the north. shall trouble him. So you have this beast kingdom here. Europa, the woman riding on a beast. And then you got this great assembly of nations from the north. Okay. This is where these nations are going to come in. They're going to what? Great assembly of nations from the north, just like World War II. They're going to steamroll into Europe, while the Messiah returns in the latter days. Okay? The kingdom will not be established yet. I think it's going to be an alien invasion. Would you want to attack the Son of God? Coming with all the authority and power and glory of God the Father? Coming in His glory? He's going to think it's an alien invasion, probably. So all these nations here, I just witnessed to you in Ezekiel. You got to understand the context of Ezekiel 35, 36. 35 is the captivity, the punishment of Esau because of the captivity and the slaughter of the children of the house of Israel by the sword of Esau. Then in 36, the regathering of the remnant. Then in the beginning of 37, 1 through 13, I do believe around there, the second resurrection of all those that were slain, and then the whole house of Israel in the second resurrection. Then it flips back to the remnant, these two sticks being joined together, coming back from captivity, 36 and 37, coming back from captivity, second resurrection in between. There's a timeline there. Then you have chapter 38, which ties in with Jeremiah 50, 51. Let's go to Jeremiah 50. Over an hour, man. I didn't want to. Let me just do this as a shortcut. I didn't write these down. Just want to show you the Medes once again. I'm trying to tell you that these prophecies concerning Babylon in Jeremiah and Isaiah, this destruction of Babylon, burning with fire and all this stuff, didn't happen the first time around. Get to it quicker. Because I'm like, Yahweh has revealed our righteousness. Come and let us declare in Zion the work of Yahweh our God. Make the arrows bright. Gather the shields. Yahweh has raised up the spirit, what? The spirit of the kings of the Medes. Make the arrows bright. For his plan is against Babylon to destroy it. It wasn't destroyed the first time around. It was conquered by the Medes and the Persians. It was left intact because it is the vengeance of Yahweh, the vengeance for his temple. So set up the standard on the walls of Babylon, make the guard strong, set up the watchmen, prepare the ambushes. For Yahweh has both devised and done what he spoke against the inhabitants of Babylon. This time it's going to be destroyed by a great assembly of nations out of the north, and it's going to be from a great assembly of nations from the north, which will include the spirit of the kings of the Medes. Where am I at? Ukraine. I'll post those 2 articles. Okay, they're going to fall into the sphere of Russia. Well, they're giving them a tough battle. Let's see where it goes. I mean, if this is false, then test the spirits. So this is going to be tested. A great assembly of nations is going to destroy, steamroll Babylon, just like World War II, man. Remember, with the fall of the city the first time in 536 BC, see, 539. I keep saying 536. 539 by Cyrus the Great. Don't ask me why, man. My memory's terrible. But anyways, it was left intact. People didn't even know it was conquered. They just marched in the river channel. This time around, read Isaiah. Why don't we go there? Isaiah 13. This is huge. Burden against Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Amos saw. So here's Amos in the 8th century BC, in the 700s. Lift up a banner on the high mountain. Raise your voice to them. And Babylon was just a little city at the time. Wave your hand that they may enter the gates of the nobles. I have commanded my sanctified ones. I have also called my mighty ones for my anger. Those who rejoice in my exaltation. The noise of a multitude of the mountains like that of many people. A tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. We know where they come from. The north. Yahweh of hosts musters the army for battle. They come from a far country. From the end of heaven, Yahweh and his weapons of indignation. We also know that it's an assembly of great nations. Here a little, there a little. You got to go, It's like God has ADD. But these are sacred. You have to put the jigsaw puzzle together to destroy the whole land. That great city Babylon is actually the whole earth. But there is a Babylon nations. Roman Catholic nations. Wail, for the day of Yahweh is at hand. It will come as destruction from the Almighty. Therefore all the hands will be limp, every man's heart will melt, and they will be afraid. Pangs and sorrows will take hold of them. They will be in pain as a woman in childbirth. They will be amazed at one another. Their faces will be flames. Behold, the day of Yahweh comes, the day of atonement. Cruel with both wrath and fierce anger to lay the land desolate, and he will destroy its sinners from it. For the stars of heaven and the constellations will not give their light, and the sun will be darkened in its going forth, and the moon will not cause its light to shine. The end of Revelation 6. Notice verse 11, I will punish the world for its evil, and the wicked for their iniquity. I will halt the arrogance of the proud. I will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. I will make a mortal more rare than fine gold. It's going to happen. A man more than the golden wedge of Ophir. Some of the stuff I see from these universalists and stuff, it's a shame. Mamby-pamby, man. Therefore I will shake the heavens, and the earth will move out of her place in the wrath of the Lord of hosts, and in the day of his fierce anger it shall be as the hunted gazelle. It's talking about great destruction on Babylon. 17, behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, and who will not regard silver, and as for gold, they will not delight in it. Also their bows will dash the young men to pieces. Babylon was not destroyed the first time around. This is for the latter days, and they will have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes will not spare children in Babylon, the glory of kingdoms. The beauty of the Chaldeans' pride will be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It will never be inhabited. Well, it finally became uninhabited, but it wasn't destroyed like this. When the Medes overthrew the city, they just walked in. They didn't shoot an arrow. Basically, didn't shoot an arrow. They didn't even know that the city was taken. People didn't even realize it until days after it happened. Nor will it be settled from generation to generation, nor will an Arabian pitch tents there. Wild beasts of the desert will lie there. Houses will be full of owls, unclean beasts. Let's see, there's a meaning for unclean beasts. Ostriches will dwell there, and wild goats will caper there. Hyenas will howl, jackals. Okay. Wasn't fulfilled like this the first time around. So you got a successive punishment of the nations. Oops. First, Ephraim, the house of Israel, northwestern Europe. Okay, house of Israel. Then you have, after that, Babylon, wherever the harlot is sitting, by a great assembly of nations out of the north. Okay, get it? I mean, it's got to be tested. Which now brings us to Ezekiel. I was gonna cut this off, just take a break. I mean, I can halt it, but I'm gonna go through with it. Now we go to Ezekiel. So we know that the house of Israel is slaughtered by Esau, or this red beast. Roman Catholic nations, primarily where Esau is at now. Spain. Hisbal and Hispana, son and grandson of Esau, many. Greece, Turkey, Timon. We come to 38. Okay, so the house of Israel, chapter 35, is destroyed. God brings back the remnant of the house of Israel back to the land, and Judah's going to come back, right? Jeremiah 51, the house of Israel and the house of Judah will come out of Babylon weeping, mourning on the way to Zion. It's not the saints. We try to spiritualize this crap, or this stuff. I didn't say crap, but the stuff that they're witnessing is crap, according to me. Now we come. Now, at chapter 37, the two houses that's not the church. You're going to rule over those people. Those the two sticks brought together. You're going to rule over them. These are a physical people. Just go to chapter 23. I'm going to appoint shepherds over these lost sheep. Now the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, now that what's left, the tenth of the house of Israel and Judah, United States, the Jews, Ephraim, Manasseh, Reuben, France, Sweden, Naphtali, Dan, Ireland, so on and so forth. Issachar, Finland, which they're getting nervous. Now the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal, and prophesy against him. Now we're coming to Now we're coming to the last judgment. Okay. Sorry, I start to get a little delusional. Now we're coming to the prophecy of Gog and Magog. It's not going to happen just yet. I see that probably all the Orthodox ministers that love to make money off this stuff. I'm sure the books are being written right now. The printing press is going to fire up. And again, we'll see how this plays out. You have all these lands to the east, trouble from the news. From the east and the north will trouble him. King of the north. Okay. He's going to go out with great fury, just like Hitler did, right? He was beaten back, steamrolled all the way back to Germany. All these nations here, Gog, Magog, Rosh, Tubal, Togarmah, Gomer, right here. Togarmah, probably these nations right in here, east of Turkey, right here. Post an article. I'm not going to get into detail. This would be it's already an hour and 21. It'd be a 3-hour video. Okay, to research all these nations. What I'm concerned first and foremost, and tensions are escalating. Okay, Russia and the United States are the chief occupiers of Syria. Iran is in here too. You know, I don't even push my stuff on my wife. I showed my wife this the other day. She goes, "Wow, this is fascinating." This is how I am. You will have to contact me and I don't debate on my YouTube channel. If you're coming to debate on my YouTube channel, you can leave a witness. I don't have time to debate you. It's not an issue, the salvation, gathering up of every fragment. Not an issue here. It's already proved from the Torah here. And that. I'm not trying to be arrogant. I'm the biggest sinner of like Paul. So now we come to who's going to judge Babylon. We know that Christ is going to, vaporize all those nations around Jerusalem. Zechariah 12, 13, 14. Son of man, set your face against Gog, Magog, Rosh, Meshach, Tubal. Prophesy against him and say, Thus says Yahweh God, behold, I am against you, O Gog, the prince of Rosh. Yeah, they're saying, some people are saying this Gog, prince of Rosh, is Vladimir Putin. Well, we'll see. Meshach, Moscow, Tubal, also considered Russia. I'm not going to get. This is studying of this is very wearisome to the flesh. I will turn you around, put hooks into your. I'm just trying to show you the general right now. Let's see. I'm really just my eyes fixed on Syria, and Russia, and how this is going to play out, because they're both there in Syria. I will turn you around, put hooks into your jaws, and lead you out with all your army. This is after these nations have come against who? Jeremiah 50:51, including the Ukraine. We'll see how it plays out. Let the spirits be tested. Steamrolled the political system, this political alliance of this and military of this. The religious will be exterminated. Then they'll worship a man. And that's what I'm still seeing. I see that the beast is your flesh and all this stuff. I mean, it's got to be as he declared to his servants, the prophets. Sorry, not buying into it. You get a lot of mamby-pamby stuff. Too allegorical for me. I'm old school. We'll see how it's played out. This is why as a quote-unquote universalist, I don't accept that. And I'm not well accepted, even by universalists, because I go to the Torah. I don't like that, for the most part. I'm old school. This is the God of Moses here. You're not going to take lightly what you say about him. These universalists are saying, oh, gay marriage is going to be accepted. It's the new way. That was the old God. I've seen that by teachers. Well, my friends, the Torah is going to go out to the nations. And you know what? The laws concerning sexual relations are going to be reinstituted. They're going to keep the statutes and judgments. Okay? And you're going to be over it to implement them. Okay? Okay, Persia, that's Iran. Ethiopia, that's Kush. Like I said, this is probably most likely the dark-skinned nations of this. You can research this. Again, 2 articles I'll post. The dark-skinned nations of the India and Pakistan and that Bangladesh and Libya. Or Put. I think I said Put is Cush. I'm sorry, I had that wrong. Are with them, all of them with shields and helmet. Gomer and all its troops in the house of Togarmah. All right, that's most likely the nations that are east of Turkey and that. From the far north and all its troops, many people are with you. So after Babylon is steamrolled, or during the time, or after, in the latter days, after Christ is returned, after the nations, the house of Israel, the remnant are gathered back, as I'll witness to you, this is when this is going to take place, and there will be a type in the last days. There are differences. That's a whole other video in itself. Prepare yourself and be ready, you and all your companies that are gathered about you, and be on a guard for them. After many days you will be visited. Notice, in the latter years you will come into the land of those brought back from the sword and gathered from many people on the mountains of Israel. What are we talking about? You got to go back to Ezekiel 35 to understand the context. Those brought back from the sword from the house of Esau. This is not a 1948 prophecy and the prophecy of Judah today. Judah's armed to the teeth. They're the 4th biggest military. Which has long been desolate. They were brought out of the nations. These are the remnant of the house of Judah and Israel. And now all of them dwell safely. Israel does not dwell safely. They even have a wall between them and the Palestinians. You will ascend, coming like a storm, covering the land like a cloud, and all your troops and many peoples with you. Again, all these nations, okay? Many people with you in Libya will come down to the mountains of Israel, okay? After the remnant of the house of Israel and Judah are brought back from the sword and from captivity. So this is the punishment, the successive or the order of events, the order of the punishment of the nations, the judgment of the nations. These will get it last. After they've destroyed Babylon, after Babylon has destroyed the house of Israel, and after Babylon has come against Judah, I didn't include that. You can read Joel, which witnesses the seventh trumpet, the Jubilee trumpet. Okay, then you got this group after they've wiped out Babylon. When Christ is returned in the latter years, the latter days, then you'll have this group of nations coming down. It is not yet, is what I'm trying to tell you. Test all things, or what I'm witnessing to you, the spirits will be tested. Man, I'm turning into a wilted cornflake here. Okay. Thus says Yahweh God, on that day it shall come to pass that thoughts will arise in your mind, and you will make an evil plan. You will say, I will go up against a land of unwalled villages. I will go up to a peaceful people who dwell safely. That's not Israel or Judah today. All of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates. Now they're fortified to the max. To take plunder and to take booty, to stretch out your hand and against the waste places that are again inhabited, and against people gathered from the nations who have acquired livestock and goods, who dwell in the midst of the land. They're going to come against the Messiah in the last. They don't know who this person is. He says he's going to rebuke nations afar off. Remember, in the last days. In Isaiah chapter 2. Sheba, Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish, and all their young lions will say to you, have you come up to take plunder? Have you gathered your army to take booty, to carry away silver and gold, and to take away livestock and goods, to take away great plunder? Whew. Therefore, Son of Man, prophesy and say to Gog, thus says Yahweh God, on that day when my people Israel dwells safely, will you not know it? And in chapter 39, it talks about how Israel will be regathered. They won't blaspheme God anymore. So this is not talking about the 1,000 year, at the end of the 1,000 years. And Gog also comes up again from the four corners of the earth. This is coming from, this is a nation dwelling in the north country. So it's specific. It's not the same prophecy. This prophecy is probably a dual one. This is the first time it will be fulfilled in the latter days, and then you will have an end time at the end of the millennium. Dual. Then you will come from your place out of where? The far north, you and many peoples with you, all of them riding on horses, a great company and a mighty army. You will come up against my people like a cloud to cover the land. It will be in the latter days. Who will be on the earth in the latter days? Put the jigsaw puzzle together. Messiah will be on the earth in the latter days, gathering the remnant of house of Israel and Judah. They will be dwelling safely, securely, under the wings of the Messiah. These people won't know they're going to come up. Again, he's going to rebuke many nations afar off in the latter days. Okay. Spirit of the Medes. The Medes will again. It doesn't. Forgive me. It doesn't mention specifically in this prophecy the Medes, but it said I'm trying to show you that they will most likely fall back into the sphere of the Russia. That's one of the reasons why I did this video. An hour and 33 minutes. Getting back here. In the latter days. Who's going to be on the earth in the latter days? that I will bring you against my land so that the nations may know me. See, they're not going to know. It's not going to be Christ has returned when he lands with the saints on the Mount of Olives. I will bring you against my land so that the nations may know me when I am hallowed in you, O God. He's going to rebuke many nations afar off before their eyes. Thus says Yahweh God, are you he of whom I have spoken in former days by my servants the prophets of Israel, who prophesied for years in those days that I would bring you against them? It hasn't happened yet. And it will come to pass at that time when Gog comes against the land of Israel, says Yahweh God, that my fury will show in my face, for in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath I have spoken. Surely in that day there shall be a great earthquake in the land of Israel, so that the fish of the sea, the birds of the heavens, and the beasts of the field, all creeping things that creep on the earth, and all men who are on the face of the earth shall shake at my presence. He's going to make the earth known. This is the rebuking of the nations far off. They're going to know who they're dealing with. The mountains shall be thrown down, the steep places shall fall, and every wall shall fall to the ground. I will call for a sword against Gog throughout all my mountains, says Yahweh. Every man's sword will be against his brother, and I will bring him to judgment with pestilence, with bloodshed. I will rain down on him, on his troops, and on the many peoples who are with him. Flooding rain, great hailstones, fire and brimstone. Thus I will magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations. Then they shall know that I am Yahweh. The world is going to get it. They're going to come to understand who they are dealing with. Okay? So I'm trying to show you. I'm sure I see videos out on Facebook, YouTube. I see, it's time for Gog and Magog. It's not. Of course, let the spirits be tested. It's not. There's going to be an orderly, successive punishment or judgment of the nations. God is a God of order even in this. It's not just going to be a bunch of missiles flying everywhere and you're going to be hoped to float away to heaven, or it comes. First of all, if we are Ephraim, and we are Ephraim, these people are going to have to be warned of what's coming. He says it. Amos 3:7. Yahweh does nothing unless he first declares it to his servants, the prophets. That's going to be the 144,000 of the tribes of Israel. I believe Philadelphia. Let the spirits be tested. They aren't here yet. They're here. I don't think they're organized. Well, we'll see. But I mean, you can go to Ezekiel 39 and you can see again that it's getting after the burial of Gog. You can see that it's Israel restored to the land. I will set my glory among the nations. All the nations shall see my judgment, which I have executed. They're finally going to get it. And my hand, which I have laid on them. So the house of Israel shall know that I am Yahweh their God from that day forward. That's not. This is not the end time revelation at the end of the millennium. The Gentiles shall know that the house of Israel went into captivity for their iniquity. This is again starting in chapter 33. Witnessing the sword coming on the house of Israel, the watchmen of Ephraim. Chapter 34, he talks about the judgment of the shepherds. 35, Esau gets it. You can also read about that in, like, Isaiah 64. Where else? There's a lot of Isaiah 11. There's Isaiah 10. I mean, what? Just let me. Obviously, Hosea. The whole book is about Ephraim, the house of Israel. Amos gets it by the Assyrian. They went into captivity for their iniquity because they were unfaithful to me. Therefore, I hid my face from them. I gave them into the hand of their enemies, and they all fell by the sword. The Hebrew roots people believe they're in captivity. We have an obesity problem here. I'll tell you, what a demonic doctrine, that Ruth Bader Wooten two-house theology. What a perversion. According to their uncleanness and according to their transgressions, I have dealt with them and hidden my face from them. So he's hiding his face right now. If all this is true, you better hope that, that we do take Syria if he's going to destroy this country. Now I will bring back the captives of Jacob and have mercy on the whole house of Israel. You can see it's the latter days when he's on the earth. So, I'm just going to wrap it up. First and foremost, the punishment of the nations. First and foremost, let me just say this. The Ukraine, most likely going to fall back into the sphere of Russia. Rosh, Meshach, Tubal. Okay, and the sphere of China is a close ally now of Russia. Okay, fall back into the sphere because they are the Medes. Slavic nations, Elam. Okay, we'll see how it plays out. Because Elam's going to play a part in this. So they're going to fall back in the sphere. Okay, the first nation, though, the nations, the house of Israel, are going to bear the scorn of the nations. Especially this one right here. Double fruit, Ephraim. Again, where are Russia and the United States? And Syria. Next, after that, the red beast of Revelation. Why is the red beast red? Well, just read Isaiah 64. Read Isaiah 34. And tie it in with Revelation 19 and 18 and 17. Red beast, eighth beast, which will have no woman riding on it because she will be exterminated. All religions within this realm will be exterminated. Okay. After that, after the house of Israel, comes the judgment of Babylon. By whom? A great assembly of nations out of the north. Just like World War II. Yeah, Germany pushed into, he's going to go off to the north and to the east with great fury, right? Yeah, he's going to get steamrolled all the way back. While the Messiah is landing on the earth, all this chaos, mankind reduced to more rare than gold. Then after that, Christ himself will judge these nations, this block of nations. Gog, Magog, Tubal, Rosh, Togarmah, Gomer. Okay, that'll be the third. Three major waves, I see. Three major judgments of the nations. You want to put it in three parts. Okay. That's it for this video. An hour and 45 minutes, almost. So I just wanted to make my statement on the Gog and Magog. Ezekiel 38 and 39 for the most part, and Ukraine and prophecy. Ezekiel 38, 39, gotta hold off. But we will see. So thank you for your time, and thank you for listening.